Full moon in the sign of Leo happening on February 12th. Things are coming to a completion. They are coming to an ending. In the sign of Leo, they are going to be heart, matters of the heart, big love. They could feel very personal. Could also have to do with our empowerment. A full moon in the sign of Leo can also point to our empowerment, our sovereignty. It's the sign of the king, the queen. It's also the lion heart, the brave heart. And so think about culmination, completions, endings potentially around heart matters, around your sovereignty, around your next level of empowerment. There's also a lot of disruptive energy in this full moon. There's two great disruptors. So of all the archetypal planets, asteroids that are in astrology, there are two that I would say are the mass disruptors, and they are both at play during this full moon, which could be interesting. We'll dive into that in a little bit. The other thing that I want to mention is this is kind of something that's sitting in the background during this full moon is the North Node is kind of getting a bit of a wake up. It's kind of, there's like a lot of mystical magic that's sitting around our true north. So that's your highest path forward. That's your future visions. That's where you're headed as a soul in this lifetime. So there's a lot of mystical magic around that I want to point to. One of them being the goddess Isis, which she's known to be one of the most magical archetypal energies. Very healing, very protective. Also brings about that really wild mystery of to die before dying. We'll talk about that probably toward the end because I want to focus on like major themes. That's kind of a background theme that's going to get a little bit louder after this full moon happens. All right, let's dive into this. We'll go theme by theme. I'll give you some practices too. Everybody's been asking me, Sabrina, more embodiment practices, more archetypal practices. How can I like really dive into the energetics of the moment? So we'll talk about that too. Let's go with full moon first. Let's just keep it super simple. Walk into this really simply. Tucker thinks that this is a really exciting full moon. All right. So full moon, this is peak. It's the culmination. It's the endings. It's also when the moon, the emotional aspect of self, the feminine aspect of self, we could say the mother aspect of self, the intuitive aspect of self is at its brightest. So it's the loudest. So you want to just think overall, your emotional nature is going to be more amplified during a full moon. It's going to be louder. You can kind of like think about the tides, right? The ocean tides, they move more during a full moon. Water is the element associated with emotion. So you can just feel there's going to be more tides, more emotional flavor going on during a full moon time. Now let's talk about a full moon in the energetic flavoring, besides just the water element, the energetic flavoring of Leo, right? So, all right. If we have more emotions going on during a full moon, that intuitive nature is louder. The feminine side is louder. The culmination of things is really up. What's ending, we're kind of at that phase of a cycle of just like max, like the summer point, you know, like the peak of summer is kind of like the full moon energy. Now mix that in with Leo. So this gets interesting. Emotional side, intuitive side, feminine side, mixing in with a lot of fire. Leo is a lot of fire. So now we have a lot of fire energy. We have a lot of heart energy. So Leo is a lot of heart energy and a lot of fire energy. So you think emotions are big, but they're fiery, like fiery emotions, passionate. Leo is a very passionate sign. So you put the emotional nature into a passionate sign. Now we've got matters of the heart. We've got a lot of passion. We have a lot of fire going on. Leo is also about self-expression. So a lot of emotion, a lot of passion, a lot of self-expression. And it's about shining your light out into the world. How fully are you shining your light out into the world? Now, there's a really beautiful piece here with one of the great disruptors. Remember, I said there's a lot of disruptive energy going on. The two great disruptors are all up in the mix for this full moon. One of them being Uranus. Now, here's how this mixes in with this. So let's keep building on this. Let's go back to full moon. Big emotional nature, big intuitive nature, a lot of feminine. A lot of feminine means a lot of life force, a lot of energy is right now in the sign of Leo, right? So it's fiery, it's passionate, it's matters of the heart. It's how fully are you expressing your light out into the world? That's Leo. Leo is also the sign of the sun. So it's you shining your light out into the world. Now here's Uranus. Uranus goes, how free do you feel to shine your light out into the world? Uranus is in a T-square. A T-square is change. A T-square is like a rub, right? It creates a rub for change. Uranus wants change. This is the disruptor. I will disrupt the norm. I will disrupt the patterns that you're currently in to move you into something that is extraordinary. This is beautiful, right? This is beautiful. So you want to think your full expression of self, you shining your light in an extraordinary way, in an beyond the ordinary way, extraordinary. Uranus, so let's say like, if you can see my hands, I know some of you are listening on the podcast and you're not really seeing, but my hands are just kind of like holding this like bandwidth, right? They're just sort of apart. And you can imagine like inside that bandwidth are your norms. We all have them, you know, what we consider to be normal, and what sits beyond that bandwidth on the outside of those two lines is the miraculous, is the extraordinary, the non-ordinary. The miraculous sits outside of the ordinary. That's the territory Uranus lives in, thrives in, dances in. The gift of Uranus is that he pushes us in a disruptive way outside of ordinary, outside of what we would consider like the norms. So he pushes us, sometimes in very uncomfortable ways, into our extraordinary. So this is a full moon that's going to be challenging. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It will be challenging because of Uranus square solely, but then there's other aspects that we'll talk about in a minute as to why this will be challenging. But it's a good challenge. So if we can look at it, let's talk about practices. You know, like if this is a good challenge, let's talk about some journal prompts and some practices here around this. Feel into the energetics of Leo. Leo is creative freedom. Now, creative doesn't mean art, you know, like actually, I do want to use the word art. What is the art you're creating in your life? Like your creative, artistic, like the way that I go on my morning hikes is art. It's an art form. It really is. Like, it's just this like creative meandering, right? It's very like shamanic-y vision quest through the woods. I don't walk on paths or trails, and I never walk the same place twice. I usually cannot find the like miraculous, magical, miracle places that I find out in nature because it's such a meandering walk to them. And it's like something beyond me. Leo's a very inspired, like if you think about creativity coming from the inspiration, like there's an inspiration that comes from somewhere, and it's oftentimes very emotional. It's very passionate. You know, if you think about just yourself as a great artist and you give yourself freedom, Uranus, you give yourself the freedom to create great art. What is my art? There's the question. That's question number one, journal prompt number one. What's my art? What is my art. Your art could be raising babies. Your art could be building a shed. Your art could be creating the most beautiful flower bouquets. Your art could be the way that you solve problems. What is your art? And how fully are you expressing your art? Fully, full moon, fully. How fully? It's going to push. It's going to push. How fully are you expressing your art? Now it's going to push, and it's also going to touch matters of the heart. So if we were to allow ourselves, here's kind of number 2, and this is kind of journal prompt number 2, or, meditation practice number 2 would be if we were to allow ourselves to really feel the depths of our heart, because it's pointing to exactly what your art is. And it's pointing to exactly what's getting in the way of your art. What is it that's getting in the way of your art? Think of your art, if that word is hard, think of your creative freedom, your freedom of expression, your freedom to express your light in the way you want to express your light, right? There's a sovereignty to the sign of Leo. There's a real passion. It's king, queen. There's a sovereignty. Like, I will, there's a will to it too. I will shine my light. I will shine my light. So if we were to really lean into the gifts of Leo, the energetics of Leo, and our emotional nature, the moon, emotional, intuitive nature, the moon, really feeling into a heart center and our passions. So can you let your passions come alive? Can we allow ourselves to feel the hurt? Leo is so good at feeling the hurt. Leo is so good at feeling the joy and the hurt, right? Like the heart, all the heart feels, that's Leo. And so can we give ourselves during this full moon, if this feels right for you as a practice, the opportunity to really feel what you might not want to feel? Because this is a change full moon. It's a full moon that's asking for change. And this has come to an end. You denying your light is coming to an end. You're done. You're done blocking your creative genius. You're done in this situation that isn't allowing you to shine your light. What are you done with? What is it that is coming to a completion, needs to end, is ending, so that you have creative, Leo, freedom, Uranus. Full moon, expression, Leo. Creative freedom, full expression, shining your light in, here's Uranus, the new true way. The new true way. So this is not a moon to go back and reflect on, 2 years ago. Oh, I missed the boat on that thing that I was called to. That might still have juice in this moment, but it's very much 2025. This whole year is going to be very much about this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment. It's not a year to be looking backward because of the enormous amount of change that's happening. Change. I keep calling this a threshold year, 2025, threshold year, right? I mean, all the outer planets are changing. Everything's changing. It's enormous change. We haven't seen this in 3,000 years. We won't see something like this again in our lifetimes. It's that big. And I think we're feeling it. I'm seeing it. I'm sensing just in different spaces that I'm holding, retreats that I'm running, things that I'm kind of tapping into and plugging into. We're sensing it. Like, we're sensing that we're on unstable ground. And it's unstable ground because of the enormous disruption that's happening and the enormous reconfiguration. It's like reconfiguration. So of course it's unstable because everything's being reconfigured. All right. Let me just feel if there's anything else around this full moon, Leo. Let me see if I've got some more journal prompts and some practices for you. A really great practice would just be to meditate on your heart. Just put your hand on your heart. You can imagine your heart as a rose. This is a really powerful Mary Magdalene practice. So for those of you who are maybe drawn to the archetypal energy of Mary Magdalene or the Magdalene mysteries, a rose, any color rose that you're really drawn to for the heart. I am in this moment loving red rose. And so I imagine this red rose and I imagine it a tight bud. And then I just breathe. It's like I breathe life force into it, right? That's Shakti, that's the feminine, that's bringing in the juice, that's bringing in the aliveness, right? The wisdom, the wisdom energy. And so I just breathe Shakti, I breathe life force into it in a way that allows this rosebud to bloom and bloom and bloom and bloom and open and open and open and open. And this rosebud, as it's blooming and blooming and blooming and opening and opening and opening, what does it mean that I do with my life? This is such a good practice, right? But you're going to have to do it like when you set your space and like really go into it. And what is it that, like for me, this is so strange. For me, all I see is a garden. Like I really, really need to have a garden this year. That's so weird to me. I've never even had a garden in my life. But that to me feels like something that has my heart, that I'm very passionate about. You know, it doesn't, the logical self in me goes, Sabrina, you have no time for a garden. You live at 7,000 feet in elevation. Like what are you going to plant? You're going to have to figure out all kinds of stuff on that. And who cares? Who cares about the how? This isn't a full moon that's about the how. This is a full moon about freedom of expression, no matter if it makes you money or if it makes any sense, right? Or if it fits into what you think is your life. You know, like that doesn't fit. That makes no sense to me. But that's when I see, and here's the other thing I want to just remind us of. We have no idea of the ripple effect of that garden, right? Or when that bud blooms and opens, your creative expression. This is also a representation of that you shining your light out into the world. And the heart being one of those wisdom centers that really allows that light to move out into the world. Now, let's take this practice another layer deeper. It's not just what is it that helps my heart to blossom, like planting a garden. It's what armoring do I have in front of my heart? This is a really good one. And this is Uranus, the great disruptor square. This is Uranus. Uranus is also a great awakener, Kundalini awakener. It's awakener, right? Awakener. Let me move you out of your limited constraints. So wants to move us out of our limited constraints of the heart. See that? Let's talk a little bit more about what this could mean. So if we're going back to our visualization of the rosebud blossoming, and then you see, wow, these would be the nutrients to help my rosebud blossom. It would be, maybe you were a painter. Maybe it is painting, maybe it is, you just need more love in your life. Like I remember for a while, I needed a dog. Like I knew that there was a flow of love that wanted to happen between me and an animal. It was a thing that like really, it's part of my creative expression. It's part of how love wants to uniquely flow through me. And so not just thinking about what are the things to add to your life or the things to do. What are the things to break free of Uranus? What are the things to break free of? I have to break free of my family patterns. I have to break free of that old heartache I'm still carrying around. I have to break free of the armoring and the protection that I carry around my heart. I remember my mom, when I was younger, she would always talk so viscerally about how she had a wall around her heart. She would just talk, no, I just have a wall around my heart. I have a wall around my heart. She literally had like heart problems in her 30s because it manifested physically, but it was very much an energetic wall, an armoring. And so being really honest, this is such a good time when it's a full moon, right? It's because it's illuminating things. It's illuminating things. So let it illuminate the armoring, The armoring. What is that? Old patterns, old armoring that keep your heart closed, that block the flow of love, that block your flow of creative expression. Deepen into this. Journal on this. Have conversations about this. You know, those like soul friends who they just like truth bomb you, because it's really hard to see these parts of self. But this is such an awesome opportunity to see these parts of self. Let me give you this little tip too. The world will probably be orchestrating itself because of many influences, but big reason is because of the T-square with Uranus, and Uranus just went direct. Uranus was also squaring Mercury, which is the messenger of the gods. So Uranus is really, really loud energy. And when Uranus is really loud, he can play trickster. This is part of why he's such a great disruptor. He can play trickster in the physical world. So the physical world is probably creating experiences right now that show you where you're blocking love, or where it's very hard for you to keep your light shining through your heart, your creative expression, love flowing through, keeping an open heart. You're probably getting situations thrown at you right now because of Uranus trickster. Situations thrown at you right now where you are seeing, if you were to reflect on this, where you are seeing that it's very hard for you to keep an open heart. It's very hard for you to continue to shine your light. You want to implode on yourself, or you want to put that wall up, or you want to armor, or you want to protect, some kind of a defense mechanism. And what Uranus is trying to help us do in his disruptor, challenging way of creating trickster situations is to help you blast outside of that bandwidth of love potential you have right now, that bandwidth of creative expression, that bandwidth of you shining your light out into the world. Isn't that beautiful? It's beautiful. So just this, sit down, take an hour or half an hour and just go, okay, what are the challenging situations right now? What's going on in my life? What's been presenting itself? And then maybe, how does this, because Leo is also the sign of children. It's so fun. It's such a like fun sign. And you can think about like, how does this relate to my childhood? Does this relate to my childhood? Is this a pattern that I'm still carrying around from my childhood? Is it ready to evolve? Is it ready to shift or change? All right. Woo, that was kind of fun. For those of you who are working with archetypes in ReWilding, you're in IX and you're doing archetypes. Uranus is one of the archetypal energies that we'll work with this month. Now, if you're not in IX, you can work with Uranus in an embodied way of however you want to practice into this, right? Like you own this practice, but you just imagine you've got this bandwidth, right? And you're operating inside this bandwidth. We all have a bandwidth, right? And, hopefully we're on a path of where it's expanding. We're evolving, we're growing. Our consciousness is expanding. Our love is expanding. We're just like personal development. We're growing, your growth. And so it's expanding. But when Uranus comes to town, Uranus is like, I'm just going to take those away. He's literally like, I'm just going to take the bandwidth away. And suddenly you are open to non-ordinary. You are open to the extraordinary. You are open to the miraculous. The miraculous is not miraculous. The non-ordinary is not non-ordinary. It's all a possibility. It's all a potential. And so you can just visualize that, deepen into that. At some point, we'll have archetypal activations available again. We just closed the doors to those, but at some point, those things will be available. So maybe stay tuned for that. Okay, let's keep going. So we've gotten through full moon, Leo, square to Uranus. Let's talk about the other disruptor. I think we should talk, if we're talking Uranus as the first disruptor, let's talk about the other disruptor. Now, this disruptor is a feminine disruptor. So where Uranus is more a masculine disruptor, as in a little bit more focused into consciousness. If masculine is the formless, masculine is consciousness. It's like consciousness, that's going to be his kind of route in consciousness. Now, Eris is the feminine. Eris, it's so funny. Let me give you another little Uranus mystery. This is interesting. Here's why Uranus can be a trickster. Because I'm saying Uranus is more consciousness, right? More consciousness, more divine masculine energy. Yes, that's true. But because Uranus is linked to Kundalini, right? There's a link between Uranus and Kundalini, which is the serpent energy, which is the form, right? So Uranus, as the great awakener of Kundalini, this is how Uranus gets to be a trickster. Because Uranus energy comes down, meets Kundalini, which is the feminine, which is the sacred energy in all of life, all of form, right? So Uranus can move through the world and create trickster stuff via the serpent, via Kundalini. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? So while I'm saying it's very it's very linked to consciousness as a disruptor, very much can move the physical world because of that link to Kundalini. It's so beautiful. It's so stunning, right? Like his lightning bolt comes down, wakes her up. Now she is like his hands in the world. She does his bidding. She does his bidding. It's stunning. It's so stunning. So if you're called to like learn more about Kundalini, I mean, we've done lots of videos on Kundalini. You can go dive into that. Kind of how to work with that. But those of you who do work with Kundalini, actually our body wisdom activation is all about Kundalini. That's something really, really beautiful to work with. So if this kind of stuff is singing to you, that's a really good workshop. It's a really simple, really good foundational, but also doesn't really matter where you're at in your practice. It'll open up more of your wisdom centers and you get to work directly with Kundalini. Okay, so that's an option. Body wisdom activation. You can find links for that below if that sings to you. All right, so now let's talk about the second disruptor. Now that I've kind of felt important to speak about that particular mystery. Now, not a lot of people talk about Uranus and that particular mystery of Uranus. So it just felt good. Felt good to share that part here. Now, the other disruptor is Eris. Eris works in its feminine archetypal energy. She's considered a dark goddess, a warrior goddess. So she sits in those kind of faces of the feminine. Eris is, I want to give you some really good energetics around this. So where Uranus is in a square, this is a very challenging aspect to the sun and the moon, to the full moon, because when it's a full moon, the sun and the moon are opposites. So she's in a T-square. She's perfectly squaring. Now, Eris is in a trine and a sextile. This is a supportive aspect. It's a supportive aspect. There's a flow there, so it doesn't cause that rub and that real challenge to make change. It, interestingly, is like a release point. So if we were to think about this full moon, we're still in this theme of the full moon, culmination, illumination in the sign of Leo, right? Opposing Aquarius, the sun is in Aquarius. So sun in Aquarius, that is very much about unique expressions. We've been doing a lot of stuff on Aquarius. I'm sure you have. Pluto's moved into Aquarius. So we're like, wow, so much in Aquarius. So I won't talk much about that. But when Eris is where she's at, it's like the release point for the change. I'm trying to get these words right. I'm sorry that I'm fumbling around a little bit. I'm wanting to translate this as best as I can. Maybe a different doorway in here could really serve us. Eris is chaos. She's discord. She's goddess of chaos. Some call her Discordia, right? Like that's her other name, Discordia. Eris, chaos. She's also demanding of truth. But instead of it being Eris creating the chaos, Eris is almost cleaning up the chaos. So in this particular full moon, it's like Uranus working with Kundalini, right? And that serpent energy to mess with the world and be the great trickster, to move us revolutionary, to move us into the new freedom, 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 freedom of self-expression, freedom of your sovereignty, freedom of the queen or the king within. That's Leo. Freedom of your brave heart, your courageous heart, freedom of love expression, freedom of full heart expression, freedom to explore your passions. That's what this whole full moon is about. Now, Eris is there as like a warrior goddess who is in support of that. And Eris, we always talk about her as, just like hard energy, really creating a mess to get you to the truth. But she's not doing that here. What Eris is actually doing is, if we think about creation, the energetics of creation and creating from chaos, like out of chaos comes form, So it's like complete chaos, and chaos organizes, there's like the chaos theory, I think we've renamed that thing at this point, but it's like the reorganizing of chaos. And that's what Eris is doing here. This is another mystery that people don't often talk about with Eris, is that on the other side of the coin, she's not always just this like disruptive dark goddess. I want to mess up your life and I want to truth bomb you and I'm going to create a whole lot of chaos in your life. She actually also has the capacity to control chaos. Not control chaos, but to create from chaos. To create from chaos. To create out of the disruption, out of the chaos comes the true. Comes something that is more aligned, something that is truer to you. And that's so supportive to Leo. Leo's all about truth, the true you, true shining self, that's you. And so Eris is really on our side. It's stunning where she's at. And stunning that she's really working with creation energy, right? She is a doorway, an access point, an archetypal energy that is an access point to creation energy. So this is working with, you get capacity, like this is for real, you can legit do this, your capacity to work with the raw energetics of creation, like you tapping into the divine matrix, right? Like the web of life, and you becoming a more and more empowered co-creator with creation itself. That is part of what's going on here. If you're in membership, you got that 1 hour bonus activation on creation energy this month. If you're not in membership, you are so welcome to join us. It's $59 a month. You can come stay for a month. Just go do this creation activation. This creation activation came out of chaos. It literally, this is one of the greatest things that's ever happened in Bones, living close to the bone. That's what we call ReWilding membership. One of the greatest things that ever happened. One of the most chaotic, challenging things for my team that's ever happened. We sent wrong links to the what month are we in? February, to the February 1st workshop. Wrong links. So we got people in the wrong Zoom rooms. Then we get on, my Wi-Fi craps out. I'm in the midst of Uranus, right? Because I'm bringing that Uranus workshop through. So Uranus, it's just messing with electricals and there's a lot of disruption energy. I am not able to stay on the Zoom. So my amazing team holds the most beautiful circle on creation energy for 2 hours. While that's happening, I go and film a 1 hour activation on creation energy. Now, I've never filmed an activation on creation energy in our membership. I've never really shared it outside of long-term programs like our 18-month priestess training program or in-person retreats where we specifically work with creation energy. I've not shared it. I've not shared it in this way. So that to me is like that's a really good example of this full moon and the energetics of this moment of being able to create outside of the box. I mean, to me, this was miraculous what got created. That 1 hour activation would have never come if there wasn't a lot of disruption, a lot of having to pivot, and then the creating out of the chaos. I literally was kind of embodying the archetypal energy of Eris in that moment of, okay, I am going to create out of this absolutely chaotic thing where I got thrown out of a circle for the first time like that. It's never happened to me, right? We sent the wrong Zoom link. It's just all kinds of, and then out of that comes something that is so true, Eris. So true. And so outside of the ordinary, so extraordinary Uranus, outside in the miraculous realms of what we do not necessarily think is possible on a daily. It's like, and all possibilities become accessible. I so encourage you to go do that workshop. Just go join Bones for a month. Just jump in there. There's also like 7 extra hours of workshops, including Nothing But Soul. This is an embodiment challenge that's a bonus to joining membership. And I'll tell you why this would be really good. So if you're a member, this would be a good time to do it after this full moon though. I wouldn't do it before the full moon. I would do it before the full moon. I would do that creation activation. Full moon would be a really, really good day to do that 1 hour activation with creation energy. Crazy good day for that. Again, if you're not a member, you're so welcome to click the link below, and you're so welcome to stay for a month or stay for a year or stay for a few, just like open arms to come in there. So let's talk about this soul purpose now. Let's wrap up on this piece of the puzzle. And this is going to happen. It's happening during this full moon, but it's going to get louder after the full moon. And it's a beautiful loudness after this full moon. So it has to do with the North Node. Now we know the North and South Node. Those are the nodes of fate. That's your destiny line. South Node is where you came from, right? You could look at past life, territory, karma, where you came from. And then North Node is where you're headed to in this life. It's your dharma. It's your great potentials. It's future visions. It's kind of, we could say, if we were looking at like true shining self in this full moon in Leo, it's this full expression of true shining self. Now this just takes it and adds another layer of soul. You know, it becomes a little more spiritual because it's your karma and it's your dharma. It's what is your soul wanting to experience in this life? What is your soul? And so I love that this gets added into this full moon. Now here's what's going on. The North Node, I'm rolling my eyes a little bit because it's in Pisces, conjunct Neptune in the very last degrees of Pisces. And people say that these are the most challenging degrees of the entire zodiac. They say these are because they're the ending degrees of the zodiac, of the whole zodiac, right? It goes Pisces, then Eris. So people say that this is the hardest part. But here's what I like about it is that it's so mystical. Right? Pisces is the sign of the mystic. So mystical. It's the everything's unveiled. And the North Node being a soul point. Being conjunct Neptune is the mystic, right? In the sign of Pisces. This is so mystical. Now here's what's going to happen just after this full moon. Isis, the goddess Isis, who works in the territory of the in-between, the in-between space, the space where souls come from and souls leave. You could say, like the death, the birth-death portal. And like she works in that space. That's where one of the access points to all of her magic, all of her alchemy magic, right? All of her healing magic, all of how she moves the physical world around. How, like she literally can manipulate the physical world. I'm not talking about this outside of ourselves, by the way. We all have the capacity to do this. Isn't this wild and beautiful? You also want to do a lot of shadow work with Isis. Like you really want to do your Isis work so you don't get stuck in like a half-baked Isis and you're kind of like trying to manipulate, like it's coming from an ego-based place. So you can feel how this can get a little witchy here. But Isis has this capacity to maneuver the world, maneuver, like really influence in a very feminine way. So it's with love. Isis is also love, 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 love. That's the purification of Isis. Again, if you're working in archetypes and you're in IX, Isis is an archetype that we work with this month. If you're not in IX and you're not working with archetypes with us, eventually we'll have the doors open. In the meantime, go do creation. Go do the membership. We'll be doing archetypes in there, but that creation energy will also tap you into some of this territory that Isis works in. There's a link there. So at least there's something, if you want to dive deeper, there's something that you can do, not just something. Like, it's a very powerful 1 hour activation on creation energy. It's kind of like a sacred energy awakening. Like, if you were to have a Kundalini awakening, it's a creation awakening. It's a creation, like that's what it opens you up to, is a creation awakening. And then actually how to work in that other realm territory. I really recommend that one, right? I really recommend that one. Especially because it came out of chaos. Like, it's so good. It was just wild. You'll see like such miraculous, weird, crazy, beautiful weavings between the team and me, and just this has never happened. And I don't know that this will ever, it's not going to happen again. It'll never come again. This time will never come again. So let's talk, just to wrap this conversation up, about the full moon is your north node. And your north node with Neptune there, the mystic, in Pisces, and Isis on her way there. There's just this constant opening up of the north node, opening up of your highest path forward. And you can let this full moon, here's a way that you can link this, and this will be the last little practice that I share, is let this full moon, true shining self, right? Your how is it that you stand sovereignly in courageous, brave heart, shining your light in the world, now this is where the north node comes in the highest, most soul aligned way you can. Now, highest, most soul aligned. It is like, this is soul fulfilling to me. What is it that is soul fulfilling? Like soul food, soul nourishment. And this is way beyond the mind. This is way beyond logic, ration, reason, making money. It is not that, right? What is it? Here's another really good question. I love this one. It's a little bit of a mind-bending game, which is good because it gets you to soul. What is it that makes you feel simultaneously full, like fulfilled, simultaneously full and empty? I've given my gift fully. And being completely emptied out, I am also so full. I'm simultaneously emptied out because I've given the gift, and I'm so fulfilled at the same time. That is a really good place to meditate in, to reflect on, to dive into, to journey into around this full moon, because it's so supportive with even that T-square with Uranus, the great disruptor. Let me disrupt this, right? Let me bring you the juice you need to break you into freedom of your full expression. Freedom to be the king, the queen that you're meant to be. Freedom to be in your empowered sovereignty. Freedom to be in your, I'm going to say it like this, your unique expression of love that wants to flow through you. Final question I'll leave you with is, how does love want to flow through you? How does love, if you were to get out of your little self way and you were just to let love flow through you in the way love wants to flow through you, what is the life that gets created? What are the blocks that get blown out of the water? What's the armoring that just gets shattered? What is it that's come to an end that's time to just let go of? Love just wants to, and you were to just, I like these words too, if you were to just let it rip, right? You just let love rip. This is me. Thank you all so much for being here. I'd love to see you in the comments if that serves, and I'd love to see you in that 1 hour creation activation in our membership Bones, if that sings to you. Huge love and lots of full moon blessings to you.